All right, day 415. Let's go through this today. If you remember what we were doing yesterday, right? We were looking at this property, 5409 Huntsville Avenue, Midfield, Alabama. And this was a property that we analyzed, assuming that it was going to be used as a long-term rental, buying the property for 25% down, right? This was the analysis that we looked at yesterday to come up with a price of roughly around $30,000, right? So we went through a couple of scenarios. Say, hey, if we are able to get a rent of $1365, right? What can we afford to pay for this property specifically to make this a deal, quote unquote, assuming our target was a 10% cash and cash return. Now, obviously, this is not investment advice. We're not soliciting any investments on this call. Just simply showing you all the work that I do every single day to be consistent, to look after what we're doing every single day, and just to get a little bit better at analyzing real estate deals, okay? Now, this property yesterday, we found that according to our property, right, we went to affordablehousing.com. Just for those that don't know the website, we go to affordablehousing.com. We go to the owner section. We go to the market rent estimator. And then we plug in the address and the bedroom count. And then the most important number that we care about is right here on the bottom right, where it says that on average for 25 units within a 3.5-mile radius, the average rent is $1365. Okay, so I'm going to plug that into our BRRRR calculator today, $1365. And then we're going to analyze this deal today, assuming we're pursuing the BRRRR strategy. Now, what does the BRRRR strategy stand for? B, buy, RRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And the whole goal of this strategy is what? It's supposed to be a very scalable strategy because you're able to take out the money that you have invested, the cash that you have invested, and take as much back out in the form of loan proceeds during a refinance once the property is rented out. The whole point is that, let's say you're able to buy a property for $30,000 and you're able to rent a property for $40,000. That allows you, assuming you can get a ARV or after repair value of $100,000, that allows you to take a loan called a debt service coverage ratio loan. And now you're able to take out that capital in the form of loan proceeds for 70% of the property's value. That means if you're able to make that property worth $100,000 based on comparable properties that have been sold in the nearby neighborhood, well, you can take back out $70,000 in the form of loan proceeds, not taxable. And now you're able to take the same $70,000 that you initially invested in that property and put it towards another property. That's why it's so scalable, because what's a normal route? The normal route is you go to someone, you buy a property for 20% down, save up all the money from your full-time job, and then you buy another property using 20% down. And you do it over and over and over. And that's what makes that process really, really slow. We're not doing that in this scenario, okay? So in this scenario, we want to analyze this deal that we looked at yesterday, right? Assuming on the market, traditional financing, 25% down, but we're looking at it from the BRRRR angle today, okay? So let's plug in the address. So the address is 5409 Huntsville Avenue, Midfield, Alabama, 35228. And you can find this property right in Redfin. It's a real deal. It's on the market. So we're just doing this together, okay? Asking price for this property is $84,500. Our rehab that we calculated was $74,128. $74,128. And in case you were wondering how we came up with the rehab number, we just looked at the photos. We did some estimates. Look at the deal or look at the live from yesterday on youtube.com/@Kent_HG, and you'll see us going through. For time and brevity's sakes, we're going to go right through it, okay? Because the exercise of figuring out how to tactically put it into the spreadsheet is much more important for today. All right, so if we buy this property for $84,500, right, for the purchase price, and we have now got to calculate the ARV, the after repair value. If you remember what we've been doing over the last couple of months, is that we've been adding to our list by zip code, by properties, what are properties actually being sold for. Now, obviously, the neighborhood matters a lot. And you remember that our subject property is in this area called Wilkes, or Wilkes, I'm assuming, in between Fairfield and Wilkes, right? To the west of Route 11. So we want to look for properties that are in the similar neighborhood. So when I look back at my spreadsheets that I've documented properties that have either come on the market or sold recently, this property was sold in May 15, 2024. I know that this property is right in my neighborhood because I put down the neighborhood of Wilkes right here. And I look at 1114 Wilkes Road. This was sold in May 15. And this property was, wow, look at this property. Okay. This property looks beautiful. Nicely renovated, a little bit of carpet, but they even did the outside. Okay, great. What's the lot size on this? 9,500, and my property on this property is 0.36 acres. I have a similar lot size, 1957. This is built in 1950, so it's within a 10-year range. That gives me good confidence. And how far is this property from my subject property? All right, let's go in here. Let's go to maps. I'm gonna do 5409, Huntsville, Alabama. And you can kind of see this is down the block. So this is probably as good of a comp as I can get. So if I'm shooting for an ARV of this property, right, on $1 per square foot, if I'm trying to achieve, what was the sold price on this, right? This property sold for $177,500 for $109 a square foot. Even though Redfin think it was sold for too much and it has gone down to $156,200. Interesting, right? Interesting, $96 a square foot. So I'm going to analyze this property, assuming that I need to get my home to a standard such as this in order to arrive and achieve the same ARV. So now, if you're ever getting a bid from a contractor, right, you can say, hey, this property was sold less than 6 months ago. I want you to make my property at 5409 Huntsville Ave look like this property, right? Pretty straightforward ask, right? Okay, great. Because that's going to be really important. Now, where are my other properties at? 1567 Delton. So I also been tracking properties that have been coming onto the market. This one's listed 1026. This property is still on the market. It has not sold yet. So I can't really take that into consideration because it hasn't been sold. But you can kind of see that in general, the condition of the home is pretty up there, but it's a much larger home. So where do I have more confidence in the ARV? Probably in this property where it's at 109, but to be conservative, I put in a few other properties in here. This property, for example, is at $71 a square foot. I don't have better pictures of this property anymore, but these are the items that you want to look at because guess what? When you are getting your ARV and you're looking to get your property refinanced, chances are the appraiser is going to look at sold comps and they probably will find these same exact properties, to be honest with you. And they're going to use this to determine what their dollar per square foot price is. So it would be wise for you to actually look at these properties and think about, okay, if I ever need to challenge my appraisal, what might I use for comparable properties to challenge that appraisal with, right? This one is probably your best case scenario in terms of challenging the appraisal war. But chances are they're going to look for a few more properties, okay? So now that I plug all these details in, I'm taking the average per square foot, right? I'm using $95 per square foot as my ARV, assuming I can take this 84 grand property, spend enough money, and make it worth 141 grand. But guess what, right? If I buy this property for $84,500 and I spend $74,000 on it, I would have spent $158,000 in total on this property for it to be worth $141,000, right? Doesn't sound like it's really going to work, right? You're spending more money on a property than it's worth. A little confusing, right? So let's go ahead and run through the scenarios, right? So on a buy right here, all these numbers kind of carry through. For my closing costs, I'm assuming I got about 8% of the closing costs there, including my loan origination costs at some point. I got 100% down. So I'm assuming I'm borrowing all this money at 10% interest rate from a private money lender so I can buy it all cash, okay? Now, for my closing costs, I'm going to assume I got 8% for closing costs and I got, let me load the closing costs. Let's go to 5%. And then my acquisitions cost is going to be a 5-month holding period to renovate it to get it to look like the other property, right? 5 months, I think, is pretty reasonable. You might be a little bit light, especially considering how long it might take to get rented out, but let's just use that for now. So all in, I will be on this property $171,000. Okay, don't have to worry about a rehab. There's just my estimates of what my rehab amount is. And hey, what happens if I go over budget and there's a 3-month delay? I want to make sure I have about $18,000 of cash set aside. Now, market rent is going to equals to my rent that I plug into right here, 1365. Oops. Equals info 1365. Boom. All right. So on my refinance, if I think my ARV is $141,000, right, based on my estimate of $95 a square foot, my total loan amount based on 80% of the loan value. So I'm assuming I can go get a loan, percent what the home is worth. Well, at 7.25% interest rate with a 30-year amortization, my total PITI after our refinance would be $958. However, I will be leaving in $58,000 because I spent in total $171,000, including my closing costs, purchase, and rehab. Okay, because I'm only able to get a loan for $113,000, so I'm leaving in $60,000 on the deal. All right, so let me go ahead and delete some of these ones so you guys can see how these numbers kind of all calculate all together. All right, so in this deal, I will be leaving in $58,000. Oops, pay special values and source formatting. Okay, 58 grand, and my cash on cash return would be roughly 3 to 4%. To me, that is not a deal. Why is that? Because I'm making less than the 10-year treasury yield, which is yielding about 4.5%. Right? Why would I take all that risk, do a heavy rehab just to make 3%, 4% on my capital? Now, obviously, this is not investment against, right? I'm not saying 10% is a magic number, but these are considerations that you got to take into account, right? If you think the ARV is worth $141,000, purchase price is that, these are your numbers, okay? Now, let's play around a little bit, right? Let's say my ARV is indeed 141 grand. What do I need to lower my purchase price by in order to make and give myself a higher cash and cash return? So let's say I'm able to buy this property for $40,000. What does that look like? So now I'm leaving in $9,900 instead of $58,000. And now all of a sudden, look at my numbers. Much more healthy, right? Now in year 2, I'm at 19%. So now you know, okay, if for me to BRRRR this deal, what I need to do is, even though my ARV is $141,000, I need to buy this property for essentially $40,000, which is half of what they're asking for. But that gives me a much more healthy return, about roughly 19% in year 2, right? Assuming everything else stay constant, and I'm able to rent this property out for $1365. Okay. Now, would this be a better deal if my ARV was higher? Yeah, sure. I mean, look, we talk about 109 square foot. If, let's see, $95 a square foot, that seems pretty good. I mean, considering that this property now, Redfin's estimating is going to be worth only $96 a square foot, underwriting at $95 a square foot, that's pretty reasonable. Now, I'll do one more thing. What if you lower it to $30,000, right? Now you're able to get the property for 30 grand. On a refi, now you're making money. You're at $984 back in your pocket. So now it's infinite return, right? This is why you see all these crazy numbers. So in order for it to be a perfect BRRRR, right, let's increase this number a little bit. Let's go to $32,000. Great. At $32,000, you're only leaving in $1,200 now. And when you only leave in $1,200, now all of a sudden you're at 160% return. Okay. And this is assuming your ARV stayed the same, 141,000. I really don't want to go higher, but $30,000 and $74,000 thing. So what did we learn here, right? This is the main takeaway for me. Yesterday, when we looked at this deal, we said, hey, this would definitely be a deal, even if I bought it conventionally on the market for 30 grand, even though my rehab is 74 grand, because I'm still able to get 10% cash and cash return. Now, if you're buying for 30 grand, but now you're also thinking in account, hey, I'm going to BRRRR this property. Okay, I'm buying this property for 30 grand. My rehab is still 74 grand. But now if it's worth 141 grand, this is a slamming deal. This is no longer, guess what? a 10% cash and cash return like we calculated yesterday. This is now a 160% cash and cash return, because if I do a refi, I'm only leaving in $1,200 in the rehab. And that is the magic of you learning how to analyze these deals, right? Some people look at say, oh no, there's no way I'm just gonna buy this property for 30 grand and make 10%. That's not worth it. But if you go one level deeper in your analysis and you realize, hey, I'm actually adding a lot of value to this property because I'm spending 74 grand. And now I can get a loan for 70% of the value of the ARV based off of comps, right? Based off of some properties that I've seen sold in the last 6 months for that dollar per square foot. So you're not making it out of thin air. Now, is it a perfect comping exercise, right? Comping is an art, not a science. But at least you have some sort of subjective opinion for how you're justifying that the ARV is worth 141. And that allows you to think about, hey, what can I actually offer on this property? Okay. That is what's so important about this property. That's a type of level analysis that you want to incorporate into your deal. All right. I hope this was helpful for everybody. All right. If you want a copy of this BRRRR spreadsheet, again, I didn't make it from scratch. Make sure you DM me the word BRRRR, BRRRR, on Instagram or LinkedIn. Instagram is at @investwithkenhe. That's the fastest way for you to get a copy of the spreadsheet. Now, I hope you all copy my homework, right? Analyze the same deal analyzed today using the same spreadsheet that I can email to you. Because this is the ultimate culmination of everything we've been doing for the past couple months. We've been adding to we've created a sold list of all the comps by zip code, by neighborhood, right? So we found this right away. And then we've also been tracking the properties that have been coming onto the market lately in the zip code to see what they're coming onto the market for, to see if we have a little bit more confidence, and also understand in general what the direction of the market is. Is it going down? Is it going up? In this scenario, you saw that the dollar per square foot is going down based on this Redfin estimate. Is that a matter of fact? I don't know. Base it on your own judgment, right? You can only decide on this if you've been doing it long enough. For me, I'm not going to bank on $109 a square foot. I'm probably going to bank on $96 a square foot based on some details I've seen here. Be conservative, right? When you're super aggressive, you're hoping for the best case scenario. That's where sometimes people get really, really trigger happy. So I hope you all have an amazing Monday. I hope you all spend some quality time with your family and friends today, because that is what life is all about. All right. Have an amazing day, everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow for day 416. Have a good one, everybody.